Do you still remember the 60s, when the shimmering silver glow of the aluminum tree reflected through those bubbling bubble lights? That was a different Christmas. No smartphones, no online shopping, just the warmth of family, the smell of lead tinsel, and those thick Sears catalogs. Those were the days when the simplest things felt magical. Today, let's turn back time together to explore 25 Christmas traditions that have completely vanished and see what we might have lost on our journey toward convenience. Aluminum Christmas trees. We start the list with this glittering silver tree, which was once the ultimate symbol of modern sophistication. When people felt too bothered having to water real trees, the aluminum Christmas tree came along and became the space-age style statement in every family's living room. Every Christmas, one unique thing was that you couldn't use traditional lights because of the risk of electrical shorting. Instead, families used color wheels. These spinning discs were fitted with colored gels, shining a continuous stream of changing colors onto the tree, creating an enchanting shimmer effect. The Aluminum Specialty Company in Manitowoc, Wisconsin, produced a huge quantity, up to more than 1 million trees, with original retail prices ranging from $15 to $25, which is equivalent to about $150 to $250 in today's money. By 1965, statistics showed that nearly 40% of U.S. homes owned an aluminum tree. However, the decline came suddenly and quickly when the 1965 special Charlie Brown's Christmas aired and criticized the aluminum tree as a symbol of artificiality and the commercialization of the holiday. This wave of opposition caused sales to drop sharply by 1969. Today, they have become antiques highly sought after by collectors. And can you believe it? They sell for hundreds of dollars on eBay. What do you think of that price? Do you think that price is too high compared to bringing those memories back? Department store window displays. Christmas back then was a fierce competition between major department stores. Big players like Macy's, Gimbel's, and Marshall Field's invested huge amounts of money to create elaborate mechanical Christmas window displays, attracting millions of viewers every year. These weren't just simple mannequin figures. They were complex, automated fairylands. They had moving figures, continuous miniature train sets running, and synchronized music, creating a spectacular, unforgettable sight. These displays required enormous investment. The 1962 Macy's display cost up to $75,000, a colossal sum equivalent to about $750,000 in today's money. Families from all over considered this a Christmas ritual, making a pilgrimage downtown to admire these windows, sometimes having to stand in lines that stretched around the blocks. However, the decline of this tradition stemmed from a change in the retail model. The strong growth of suburban shopping malls crippled downtown shopping activity. Department stores could no longer afford or justify the huge expense in the face of a dwindling audience. Most stores decided to eliminate the window displays around 1985. Real candles on the Christmas tree. Even though the fire risk was obvious, many families in the 1960s still maintained the tradition of using real candles on the Christmas tree. This tradition was especially popular among families with German or Scandinavia heritage who cherished the real flame instead of electric light. Families used special clip-on holders to fasten small white candles onto the tips of the pine branches. The candles were only lit for a few minutes on Christmas Eve, and a bucket of water or a fire extinguisher always had to be kept ready nearby. The warm, natural, flickering light of the candles created an unparalleled magical atmosphere that strings of electric lights couldn't match. However, the danger was real. The National Fire Protection Association reported an alarming figure of 8,000 Christmas tree fires annually nationwide in 1964. Faced with this risk, families had to practice strict rituals, never leaving the room, appointing a fire watcher, and limiting the lighting time to just 10 minutes. By 1972, most cities had banned the use of real candles, and insurance companies refused coverage for candle-related fires. While the tradition was beautiful, perhaps no one wants an unsafe holiday, right? If you also remember the real candlelight on the Christmas tree, hit hype to preserve this invaluable memory together. Door-to-door caroling. In the 1960s and early 1970s, Christmas was often adorned by door-to-door caroling. This was a tradition where caroling groups, often organized by churches or scout groups, routinely went from house to house on December evenings, singing traditional Christmas songs for neighbors. Homeowners prepared cookies and hot chocolate to treat the carolers. The carolers carried songbooks and flashlights, moving through neighborhoods along organized routes. This activity brought the magical surprise of voices singing Silent Night, echoing on the front porch, a rare moment of community bonding. This tradition peaked around 1968, when an estimated 60% of U.S. neighborhoods experienced caroling activity. Some groups even took the opportunity to collect donations for charity, carrying UNICEF boxes or March of Dimes containers. However, by the mid-1970s, concerns about danger from strangers, the busier lifestyles of families, along with the increase in gated communities and apartment living, made spontaneous caroling impossible. The rare caroling activity that remains today mainly happens at nursing homes or scheduled events, no longer as random surprises on doorsteps. Tinsel made from lead. Looking at Christmas trees back in the day, we would see those sparkling silver strands weren't plastic or aluminum, they were actually real lead foil. Lead tinsel was used until 1972. This tradition has a very long history. Invented in Germany in 1610, lead tinsel created an unparalleled sparkle and distinctive heaviness that modern materials cannot match, hanging straight down, creating the perfect silver waterfall effect. These strands of tinsel were considered precious. A box of 1,000 strands cost only 39 cents in 1965, equivalent to about $3.50 today. Because of that value, families often carefully stored and reused the tinsel year after year. Children spent hours meticulously placing each strand of tinsel, although sometimes they threw handfuls for instant satisfaction. However, the reason for the decline of this tradition was purely a matter of public health. The FDA banned lead tinsel due to the risk of poisoning, especially for children who might eat it. Manufacturers were forced to switch to aluminum and plastic, but neither could replicate the unique properties of lead. The mylar tinsel that appeared was lighter, easily tangled, and created static electricity, lacking the characteristic heavy sparkle of the 1960s tinsel. Bubble lights on the tree. Bubble lights were mesmerizing, continuously moving decorations on the Christmas tree. Inside their glass tubes was a colored liquid that would bubble when heated by the light bulb inside. These lights were introduced by Noma Electric in 1946 and reached peak popularity throughout the 1960s. A string of 7 lights cost $2.99 in 1965, equivalent to about $28 today. The childhood memory of these lights was patience. The tubes contained light oil that seeped through and needed about 5 minutes to start bubbling once warm. Then, children were hypnotized, staring at that continuous bubbling motion. This gentle bubbling created a special magic on the Christmas tree. However, technical and economic problems led to their decline. These lights consumed a significant amount of electricity, noticeably increasing the utility bill. By 1975, concerns about the energy crisis and safety regulations reduced their popularity. More importantly, modern LED lights cannot generate enough heat to trigger the bubbling, meaning that gentle bubbling magic has largely disappeared. Although reproduction bubble lights exist, they lack the authentic unpredictability of the classic ones. Christmas Club savings accounts. This tradition originated from the need to secure finances for the year-end shopping season. Starting every January, millions of Americans would regularly deposit $1 to $10 weekly into these special accounts at their local banks. This ritual wasn't just about saving, it was a lesson in financial discipline. The First National Bank of Brooklyn claimed to have invented this concept in 1909. By 1965, statistics showed that over 14 million Americans participated, saving more than $2 billion annually. Banks competed by offering premium gifts like toasters or blankets to those who opened accounts. The purpose of the account was to ensure money for Christmas spending, so banks would mail checks to members in early November. However, the unique point of this tradition was that members didn't receive any interest, and if they missed a weekly payment, they had to start over or accept a reduced payment. That discipline of weekly Christmas deposits began to disappear around 1980. The reason was the introduction of automatic savings transfers, and the popularity of credit cards made Christmas clubs obsolete. Consumers today rely on credit rather than year-long savings plans, causing this weekly Christmas deposit discipline to completely vanish. The arrival of the Sears Wish Book Catalog. The arrival of the Sears Christmas Wish Book in late summer was an iconic event, considered comparable to Christmas morning itself. These catalogs, up to 600 pages thick and weighing nearly 5 pounds, were continuously mailed from 1933 to 1993. The childhood memory for a generation was kids immediately claiming them, spending months circling desired toys with various crayons. Parents used them as a behavioral tool. Santa is watching what you choose in your wish book. The 1969 edition stood out with 225 pages of toys in one section alone. These books were not cheap. Production and mailing cost Sears $100 million annually. Families in rural areas especially depended on these books, as Sears might have been their only shopping option. By Christmas, these catalogs were dog-eared, crumpled, and covered in marked circles. The final Christmas edition in 1992 marked the end of an era. The decline of this tradition was completely due to technological change. Internet shopping replaced the tactile joy of flipping through the pages and the anticipation of waiting months between choosing and receiving. Flocking your own tree. In the 1960s and early 1970s, applying flocking yourself to the tree at home was a popular Christmas activity. DIY flocking kits were a staple during this season, allowing families to create their own snow-covered trees at home. These kits cost $3.99 in 1968, equivalent to about $35 today. The process was messy, but also very fun. Families spread out newspapers, mixed the solution, and spent hours spraying fake snow using a spray gun, adhesive, and white cellulose fibers. The mess required wearing safety goggles and covering everything around. The worrying thing was that this flocking material contained asbestos until 1969, creating health hazards that no one understood at the time. Cleaning up after flocking took days, with white residue continuing to appear months later. By 1975, pre-flocked artificial trees sold in stores offered easier and cleaner alternatives. Environmental concerns about aerosols and chemicals also helped end the practice of DIY flocking. The messy family activity of creating your own winter wonderland has completely vanished, replaced by convenient ready-made products. The Christmas Eve Yule log broadcast. In 1966, WPIX of New York created a unique television phenomenon by continuously broadcasting a 3-hour video of a fireplace burning on Christmas Eve. The program was called TV Yule Log Broadcasting. This original 16mm film showed the fireplace scene from Gracie Mansion, accompanied by Christmas music. This was a creative solution for families without a fireplace. They gathered around the TV, pretending the electronic fire brought warmth. The original film cost $4,000 to produce, and the broadcast attracted surprising viewership, beating regular programming. Other cities like Chicago and Los Angeles quickly copied the concept. Its popularity was so great that the original film degraded due to overuse, requiring a remake in 1970. However, the arrival of cable television in the 1980s provided many channels. Ending the Yule Log's monopoly, WPIX canceled the program in 1990. Today, digital versions of the Yule log still exist on Netflix and YouTube, but the communal experience of everyone watching one broadcast fireplace together has been extinguished. Toy commercials during Saturday morning cartoons. Christmas in the 1960s and early 1970s was a time when Saturday morning cartoons in December were essentially hours-long toy advertisements. Toy companies bought huge blocks of advertising, showing the same commercial repeatedly with familiar songs. The memory of these ads is children memorizing the jingles and watching specific shows just to see the toy commercials, thereby creating their wish lists. The commercials were small productions with elaborate settings, making the toys seem magical. such as Mattel spending $15 million on Christmas advertising in 1969. However, this practice was investigated for deceptive behaviors. The FTC found that the ads used camera tricks to enhance the toys' abilities, causing manipulation of children. By 1978, the Action for Children's Television organization successfully campaigned to restrict advertising on children's programs. The advent of cable television and VCRs ended the Saturday morning monopoly. Today, children see toy ads online year-round, eliminating the concentrated December onslaught. If these stories of Christmases past have brought back warm memories for you, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel right away so we don't miss the next nostalgic journeys. Handmade paper chain decorations. In the 1960s, every classroom and home had miles of handmade paper chains hung up as decorations. This was a simple but time-consuming activity, as children spent hours cutting paper strips, forming loops, and gluing them together. A pack of colored construction paper cost 49 cents in 1967. Making chains became a competition in school and a task assigned to children at home to keep them busy during the winter break. The meticulousness and patience of making those paper chains were truly precious. Its popularity was so great that the Guinness Book of Records recorded a chain in Michigan in 1969 that was 12 miles long. These decorations hung everywhere: doorways, windows, and stair railings. However, they had one weakness: rain or humidity could cause disaster when the glue melted. By the mid-1970s, readily available manufactured garlands became so cheap and common that handmade chains seemed pointless. Modern parents lack the time for such labor-intensive crafts, meaning the hours of repetitive cutting and gluing that once filled December have completely vanished. Fruitcake as real gifts. In the 1960s and early 1970s, fruitcake was a genuine Christmas tradition, not ridiculed as it is today. Giving and receiving fruitcake was considered an act of appreciation. Families spent days making homemade versions, soaking fruit in brandy for months for the cake to reach perfection. A quality fruitcake required ingredients costing $50 in 1968, equivalent to about $125 today. Recipients genuinely appreciated them, proudly serving slices of these cakes to visiting guests. Companies like Collins Street Bakery shipped millions nationwide. Fruitcake was also a practical gift because its dense texture allowed it to last for months without refrigeration. However, the cake's reputation began to decline quickly. Jokes on Johnny Carson's Tonight Show in the 1970s began to reshape public perception, causing fruitcake to gradually become a comedy prop rather than a sincere gift. By 1980, the tradition of truly wanting, making, and appreciating fruitcake had completely vanished, leaving only the jokes behind. Christmas corsages for women. During the holiday season of the 1960s, every woman wanted to receive and wear a Christmas corsage. This was a mandatory fashion accessory. Florists created elaborate arrangements with small ornaments, ribbons, and bells alongside traditional flowers. These cost $3 to $8 in 1965, equivalent to about $28 to $75 today. Depending on the complexity, women wore them to church services, office parties, and family dinners. By 1968, forgetting to buy a Christmas corsage was considered a serious problem by husbands. Women often compared corsages competitively, using the size and elaborateness to gauge their husband's thoughtfulness. This tradition required specific rituals: wearing it on the left shoulder, removing it when cooking, and storing it in the refrigerator. However, the women's liberation movements of the 1970s criticized the corsage as a symbol of female ornamentation. By 1975, this tradition rapidly faded. Today, women might wear holiday jewelry, but the formal Christmas corsage has completely vanished. Sending Christmas cards to everyone. The 1960s represented the peak of Christmas card culture. Families maintained card lists with hundreds of names, and the process started in November, addressing envelopes, adding personal notes, and affixing stamps. The Christmas memory was displaying the cards, a competitive home decorating activity, with families hanging cards on ribbons across doorways or arranging them on the mantle. This tradition was extremely popular. Americans sent up to 4 billion cards annually in 1968. A box of 50 cards cost $2.99 in 1965, about $28 today. The post office had to hire thousands of temporary employees to handle the enormous volume of mail, especially after the zip code was introduced in 1963, making addressing easier cards were often the only yearly means of communication with distant relatives. However, by 1980, long-distance calling became more affordable, reducing the need for cards. The subsequent explosion of email and social media eliminated the communication gap that cards once filled. The average household today sends only 20 cards, mainly to older relatives, making this tradition just a memory. Christmas seals on everything. Throughout the 1960s and mid-1970s, Christmas seals from the American Lung Association adorned nearly every Christmas envelope and package. These decorative charity stamps were not just an ornament, but also a symbol of community spirit and charity. The seals featured holiday designs, Santa Claus, reindeer, snowmen, and changed annually, with the 1969 design by Norman Rockwell becoming especially collectible. They peaked when 85 million American households received them in 1967. The sheets of seals usually arrived unsolicited in the mail accompanied by a donation request, and most families felt obligated to contribute. A typical donation was $2 in 1965. If they used the seals, the campaign raised $35 million in 1968 alone. People used them to decorate beyond mail, on gifts, windows, refrigerators. However, the disappearance of this tradition was mainly due to competition from direct mail fundraising and donor fatigue. By 1980, email eliminated the opportunity to decorate envelopes. Although Christmas seals still exist, their ubiquitous presence on all holiday mailings has vanished forever. Blue laws closed everything down. Christmas back then, Sundays during the holiday season, were a quiet and nearly motionless day. That was because of blue laws, religious-based regulations that required all retail businesses to close on Sunday. These Sundays created a stressful shopping reality. Forget ingredients for Christmas dinner. You had to wait until Monday. Gas stations, grocery stores, and department stores were all tightly closed. Only pharmacies could open for emergencies. This law forced families to plan carefully, shopping on Saturday for Sunday needs, creating an unintended family closeness. Blue laws differed by state. For example, Bergen County, New Jersey, had the most stringent laws in the U.S., banning even the sale of household appliances. However, by 1970, commercial pressure began to erode blue laws. Families with two incomes needed Sunday shopping time. Most states repealed or ceased enforcing these laws by 1978. Today's 24/7 Christmas shopping would seem impossible to the families of the 1960s. Christmas bonus envelopes. In the 1960s and early 1970s, employers frequently handed out envelopes containing cash as Christmas bonuses. This was a highly personalized tradition. The money was personally handed to the employee by the boss on the last workday before Christmas. This wasn't performance pay, but expected seasonal gifts. Even small businesses participated. The exciting moment of opening the envelope full of crisp new bills created genuine gratitude. The average bonus in 1968 was 1 week's salary in cash. Employees relied on these bonuses for Christmas shopping, sometimes spending in advance based on the anticipated amount. However, the decline came from changes in the law. Looser tax laws that allowed cash payments were tightened. By the late 1970s, IRS regulations required documentation of payments. Today, direct deposits and gift cards have replaced cash envelopes, meaning the exciting and private moment of receiving an envelope full of cash has disappeared. Mandatory office Christmas parties. In the 1960s and early 1970s, attending the company Christmas party was not optional. It was an unwritten requirement that could affect one's career. These elaborate parties were often held at hotels or country clubs. Companies spent lavishly. General Motors' 1968 Detroit party cost $50,000, equivalent to about $425,000. Today, wives wore formal gowns. Husbands rented tuxedos. The party featured a full orchestra and open bars without the liability concerns that exist today. Dancing with the boss's wife was considered politically important, and missing the party meant explaining oneself for months. However, this tradition began to decline in the 1970s. By 1975, workplace gender equality made events requiring a spouse problematic. Drunk driving lawsuits ended open bars, and economic recessions killed lavish budgets. Today's non-mandatory casual office gatherings are nothing like those formal, required spectacles. Hot Christmas punch/eggnog. Back in the day, Christmas didn't start with lights and music. It started with a warm bowl of punch sitting right by the front door. In the 60s and 70s, holiday parties usually kicked off with a big bowl filled with spices, fruit, and that gentle holiday heat. The smell of hot punch greeted every guest the moment they walked in, instantly setting a cozy, festive mood. Eggnog was another classic favorite, always served with a sprinkle of nutmeg, and for the adults, a little rum or bourbon mixed in. This tradition goes way back to the 1700s. Hot punch took time, patience, and a bit of skill to make it home. But as the years passed, convenience took over. Slowly, the punch bowl disappeared, replaced by bottled drinks and ready-made cocktails. Even though these old recipes used to fill the room with warmth and rich flavors, they've faded away in modern holiday gatherings. The comfort and charm of a warm Christmas punch might be rare today, but for many people, it still lives on as a cherished holiday memory. In-store Santa visits and celebrations. In the 1960s, retail giants like Macy's and Sears hosted truly elaborate celebrations specifically for children during the Christmas season. These were anticipated parties. The parties, complete with puppet shows, Santa Claus, and gifts, turned shopping into a magical adventure for the whole family. Every child dreamed of sitting on Santa's lap to share their wishes. This was where community bonds and brand loyalty were built, going far beyond a mere sales transaction. However, by the 1980s, shopping malls took over, and the form of these celebrations changed. Department stores no longer maintained the enormous investments for such elaborate events. The cozy, bustling gatherings at these stores have faded into memory. Christmas markets. Christmas back then, Christmas markets used to be the heart of the holiday magic, bringing the Christmas spirit to life firsthand. It was where people gathered, shared smiles, and felt the warmth of the community stalls overflowed with toys, candles, homemade foods, and gifts, turning shopping into a stroll through a festive fairy tale. Customers sipped hot apple cider and selected handmade gifts for loved ones. Unlike modern shopping, Christmas markets focused on the artisanal, local experience and personal interaction. However, the rise of shopping malls in the 70s changed everything. Buying gifts became easier and more centralized in large shopping centers. That convenience caused the warmth and festive charm of these outdoor markets to be lost. Christmas markets gave way to big commercial centers, and many people still regret the lost warmth. Cigarettes as Christmas gifts. It's hard to believe by today's standards, but cigarettes were once a premium Christmas gift throughout the 1960s and early 1970s. Cartons wrapped in holiday paper were placed under the tree. Brands like Philip Morris even created special gift sets with lighters and ashtrays. Cigarettes were considered an affordable yet substantial gift. A carton cost $2.40 in 1965, equivalent to about $22 today. Even non-smokers gave cigarettes as thoughtful gifts, and it was common to see teenagers buying cigarettes as presents for their parents without controversy. The Surgeon General's 1964 report on the harmful effects of smoking had minimal impact on this gifting custom. However, things started to change after 1971. The ban on cigarette advertising on television and broadcast media began to shift perceptions. By 1975, giving cigarettes seemed increasingly inappropriate. Today, cigarettes as Christmas gifts would be considered offensive and dangerous. Real Christmas trees in the classroom. One of the strongest sensory memories of Christmas past is the smell of fresh pine wafting through school hallways. Every classroom in the 1960s had its own real Christmas tree. These trees were brought in after Thanksgiving and decorated by the students. Teachers often spent their own money, about $5 in 1965, equivalent to $45 today, to select the perfect tree. Students were tasked with making decorations in art class, and daily watering of the tree became a rotating responsibility. However, this tradition posed a huge fire risk: dry trees, paper decorations, and overloaded electrical outlets. Several tragic school fires in the early 1970s changed regulations. By 1975, artificial trees replaced the real ones. Later, concerns about allergies and religious diversity made even fake trees controversial. Insurance companies refused coverage for real trees in schools. The universal experience of decorating a real Christmas tree in the classroom has completely vanished. Stockings containing oranges and nuts. Opening a Christmas stocking in the 1960s and early 1970s always included two essential traditional items: an orange in the toe and mixed nuts in the shell. This was a tradition dating back to the Great Depression that lasted for decades, when an orange represented an exotic luxury because fresh fruit was rare in winter. Even prosperous families maintained this custom. Nuts like walnuts, Brazil nuts, and pecans filled mesh bags, costing 79 cents in 1968. These in-shell nuts required nutcrackers and picks, creating entertainment for Christmas morning. However, by the mid-1970s, the year-round availability of fruit made oranges ordinary. Shelled nuts replaced the messy whole nuts. Today, Christmas stockings hold gift cards and electronics worth hundreds of dollars. This shows a major change in living values between back then and now. Company-sponsored children's parties. In the 1960s and early 1970s, large employers frequently hosted elaborate Christmas parties specifically for the children of employees. These were big events, often held on Saturday afternoons, complete with Santa Claus, gifts, and entertainment. These events featured magicians, puppet shows, and cartoons. Ford's 1967 Detroit Party is a typical example, which entertained 15,000 children, costing $75,000, about $650,000 today. These parties built company loyalty and community among worker families. However, by 1975, liability insurance made these events expensive. The increase in a diverse workforce also made Christmas-specific parties problematic. Cost-cutting eliminated such extravagances by 1980. Today, companies might offer family movie tickets or gift cards, but the elaborate Christmas parties for children have disappeared from corporate culture. Christmas morning, trash burning. Right after opening presents on Christmas morning, families in the 1960s often performed one final ritual: burning wrapping paper, boxes, and ribbons in the fireplace or backyard incinerator. This practical tradition aimed to clear the enormous pile of accumulated paper before the garbage truck returned after the holiday. The burning created an impressive blaze from the colorful sheets, bringing joy to children. The smell of burning wrapping paper became a characteristic sensory memory of Christmas morning. However, metallic paper created colorful flames but also released toxic smoke that no one understood at the time. Fire departments reported a spike in calls on Christmas morning from wrapping paper fires that got out of control. By 1970, air quality regulations began to restrict burning. Awareness of recycling also made burning seem wasteful. Today's careful recycling and waste sorting activity have replaced the dramatic finale of morning Christmas fires. Although many customs have vanished, replaced by convenience and technology, their warmth and meaning, family togetherness, simplicity, and anticipation still remain in our memories. If you want to learn more about other fun things from the 1960s and 1970s, keep checking out our video, 20 Funny Things from the 1970s You'll Never Forget. Besides wonderful Christmases, the 70s had plenty of interesting things too. Please share your feelings and most cherished moments in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel so we can have many more nostalgic trips down memory lane like this.